Today we're going to break into the Bitcoin Treasury narrative and how this is going to play out. Is it starting to near its end? We'll break it down. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Let's get started. I do want to thank our sponsor, and that is Coinbase, a place where you guys can start your crypto journey. If you're brand new to crypto, maybe you're brand new to our channel, first of all, subscribe. And then second of all, go over and get a Coinbase account. Start your crypto journey. Get your first token out there, whether it's ETH, Coinbase is your place. So check it out. Use our link down below, up to $200 in rewards to get started. You guys can use our link. It's cool. Let's go over to a couple of points I want to start with here. And this is a line list of all the companies that hold Bitcoin in their treasury. Now, it's not, I guess it's not, probably not all, but it's the companies that are most noted. And these are the top public Bitcoin treasury companies. And you can see MicroStrategy right there in the top. There, of course, is Mara Holdings, a miner. Then, of course, you've got 21, Riot Platforms, Galaxy, and you can kind of see. Then you've got ProCap, GameStop, all of that starting to line up. And remember Pompliano's group that has just recently started to go in this. Point being is there isn't anybody on here that is a household name just yet. So the question is why isn't there? Why aren't we seeing companies that are like the Mag 7 or even major S&P 500 that would be going in this direction? I want to go in and play a clip of Cathie Wood explaining that. Take a look.
As an investor, I get a lot of advisors asking, what do you think about MicroStrategy here? You know, is this our way, our leveraged way to play Bitcoin? And it is very hard for me to say, yes, you should, because anyone who had the experience with GBTC knows that premia can go to discounts. Certainly, as more and more companies add Bitcoin to their balance sheets, MicroStrategy's premium should go away.
That is a huge statement by Cathie Wood stating that MicroStrategy's premium could go away here. And based on what we've seen in the history of where Bitcoin has played into this from the ETF side, it's an interesting narrative that I think might be picking up some steam. You have to also look at the position of Ethereum, which is just now starting to enter that narrative, meaning Ethereum as a treasury position. One point I want to look at is, of course, what's holding it back? Well, much of it that is being, as you guys know, there's these factions within crypto right now. It still exists out there. And there are a lot of Bitcoin maxis that do not necessarily win if Ethereum wins, or at least that's their belief. Institutions, though, are the ones that are probably going to be the ones that start to adapt into the next generation of crypto. I believe that's probably going to be in the Ethereum camp more so than most. One other thing I want to get at is what are the companies that are starting to move in this direction? Well, here's a good example. This is Bit Digital, which was a former Bitcoin company that is doing a strategic transition to become a pure play Ethereum staking and treasury company. This, I think, might be the very beginning of that tsunami. And as we start to see ETH playing into this, meaning as a treasury position, could get very interesting with the market. I want to go to a clip here because this is getting into the BTCS. This is an interesting clip, and I'll explain a little bit more about this right after. But this is a former Bitcoin miner moving into ETH. Take a look.
Funny, we actually started as a Bitcoin miner. So in 2014, we were the first public company to mine Bitcoin. It's just not a great business, right? So we basically exited all our Bitcoin and went full in on Ethereum. I think it was at the end of 2020, we started staking. We have no liabilities, no depreciating assets with machines. And we generate, revenue from running those validator nodes. So we don't really compete with an ETF, right? Like an ETF, even if they add staking revenue, is not doing what we're doing. They're not block building. It's a buy and hold strategy. If you want growth exposure within the network, right now we're the only game in town in the public markets, which I think is pretty cool. The downside of that is nobody understands what we're doing.
All right, so that is unfortunately the truth right now because it's very early stage. But listen, if you guys are following markets, you followed the trends in technology, the trends in mobile, the trends in AI, the trends in blockchain, you know that the early days is when these great opportunities start to rise. And I think maybe they're onto something here. Here, of course, is a NASDAQ traded BTCS. They acquired 1,000 ETH. Granted, that's only 2.5 million worth that is even done through borrowing on Aave. But they are starting to go into this. What was interesting to me is that it was with zero dilution to their shareholders. And that's interesting because they're generating that out of the value of what the network generates, obviously yield, etc. Point being is that when we had Charles on, that was the guy who was on the clip right there, almost 4 years ago, BTCS, they were in a process of kind of not necessarily seeing the future, but they had some ideas of where treasuries would be going. It's interesting to see them here at this phase now. Further into this, remember last year, Matthew Sigel hit on this. This, of course, coming in from VanEck. Sounds to me like Microsoft is open to an ETH ETF as long as they can collect staking income. So remember, this is before we saw regulation starting to unleash, before we saw the opportunity of possibly staking being available to ETFs. All of that, remember, all that happened last December in the middle of a bull run, and the opportunities around some of the biggest companies in tech that could be going this direction. Just to give you an example of that, the Ethereum Alliance, this was pretty much created by Microsoft. Let me show you something, guys. You're going to see a lot of the mainstays within this. So as you look further down, they are on the EEA board. These are Fortune 500s right there, Microsoft Consensus, Connexus, obviously with JP Morgan. Point being is that they are all in on ETH. So if we start to see this idea of ETH on Treasury, now you've got a completely different lineup of companies that could be going in that direction. That's what I think is why we will see potentially the end of the narrative of where Bitcoin on a Treasury may be starting to wane. Now, I know it's very early in that process because a lot of people may say Bitcoin's going to be winning, and it's because of that. You kind of just follow the crumbs, guys. Look at where the big players are going. Here's Sundar Pichai's 11-year-old son. He's even mining ETH. And this is kind of interesting because you look at the next generation. Where are they going? Are they going into Web3 and Ethereum land, or are they playing in Bitcoin world? Right now, I've got under 12s, and they're all invested in non-Bitcoin related projects. So be looking at that, because that, I think, is really when you get into the future of where crypto is heading. The other thing that has to compare, if anybody would be concerned about, I think, especially from a Bitcoin standpoint, is really Tether, gold. And that is because we're dealing with the same kind of situation where we start to see gold as the narrative going forward. And if you are winning the battle of, let's say, traditional finance does understand gold. They may not necessarily understand Bitcoin. And if we start to see the movement of gold and Bitcoin kind of going in the same direction, it's very possible we could see XAUT starting to be playing a bigger role in the future. All right, so I want to go to a clip by Cramer, and he's talking about Apple. I'll explain a little bit more after. Take a look.
Jim, I want to talk Apple because we didn't mention it yesterday.
Yeah.
And I can see how sad you're getting. But look at your face, the pain. Why?
But the 17 may not be selling that well. We've got a president, I don't want to say ridiculed, but had some sport with Tim Cook, who is maybe one of the greatest, if not the greatest executive of our time. I didn't like that. And he does not have an AI strategy. I'm talking about Tim Cook. And I wanted him to buy Perplexity a month ago because
it's simply not participated.
But what they do buy,
in
and
a
this has really got me down, is they just keep buying their own stock. And I think that from one look at the stock, that's not working. It's not working anymore.
Yeah.
Now, David, it sells at 28 times earnings. Is that 20 times earnings? 22? Now, I think Apple, I think is the greatest company on earth.
Wait, not the, come on, really? I mean, I know your hyperbole knows no bounds, but really.
No, okay, I do think NVIDIA is the greatest company I've ever seen. This makes the greatest product on earth.
Yes, okay.
And as long as they do that, I'm going to stick with it for my chairman.
Even though when I hear you talking, and you talk about a lot of challenges.
I am going to support that company.
Okay.
I'm going to support it.
And when would you start to question whether they have the greatest product in the world?
Okay, when Samsung takes some share away from them, and I will, then I will change. But I don't believe that. But that's when I would have to change my view. And right now, I can't change my view.
Okay.
All right, so guys, I grew up in Silicon Valley. I worked for Microsoft, and at that time, when I started to shift out of that, I saw the writing on the wall, and that was that Apple would take control of the market, and they did. For 17 years, they've pretty much dominated the tech market. That, I think, though, has come to an end, and Cramer hasn't just faced it yet. I think we are in a state right now where market shift and market share is starting to happen. If you just look at Samsung right now, most shipments in 2025. Now, granted, this has happened a couple of times before, but notice right there, Samsung taking share in 2025 versus Apple. I'm an Apple guy. I like the ecosystem, but I have started to transition out of Apple ecosystem over the last year because I think the writing is on the wall. They are not invested in AI. They are not invested in the future of blockchain. And I think they are going to be a company that continues the track of just being a cash cow, most likely. Now, everybody will argue, well, wait, Paul, their AirPod business is outpacing that of OpenAI by 3-1. I get it. But the point is, you have to look to the future. And I think that's where these new investors are starting to look. Apple's in trouble. Just watch it. So when you think about the Apple of yesterday and dominating the App Store, really dominating the use case, dominating the internet, creating Apple Pay, all the things that they've done over the last almost 20 years, now you have to look to the future. And I think that's what you have to compare to. ETH is going to be the new App Store of the next generation internet. That's going to be controlled by cryptocurrency and the way we transact. And some of the leaders out there are guys like Marques Brownlee. He's been, of course, a huge Apple fanboy. And now, maybe he might actually come over to the light side. Here's Jessica Pollack kind of hitting on it. I think you'd be excited about how far we've come. And the new creator economy, key here, creator economy, we are building on base. Let me know if you're down to chat. Interesting statements, because this is the future going forward, guys. Listen, if you're not in our Diamond Circle, well, you should be. If you want to catch the early waves of all of this stuff that's happening in not only tech, AI, and really the crypto legislation, all you have to do is subscribe right now. Get in on the Diamond Circle. We leave a free link down below. Follow me on X, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.